You're tuning in to GoneDotNet.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of GoneDotNet. I'm Alan Ritchie, and today we're joined by the one, the only Gerald Verslewis. Apologies if I did not say your name right. I try my best. But
I keep saying I need some kind of, if I would have known that I was going to do this, being online, being at conferences, whatever, because I never thought I would do this, I would gone with a cool stage name or something. I don't know.
Do you have a cool stage name in mind?
No. Do you have one for me?
No. I mean, John's got a pretty unique one because he's got Retth, and I've always been like, what's Retth? Yeah, I mean, because nobody has that. But the same, your last name, I mean, it's pretty unique. I don't hear it often. Did I say it properly though?
Absolutely not, but that's fine.
Oh, okay. Say it properly. I think
you don't have you don't have the ow sound for Verslaus.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I speak. David Orton now says we speak Canadiana up here.
Yep.
So I have no accent that I hear. But yeah, it's my apologies. I try and do it justice. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But that's a very interesting roll of the time.
So, and that's the same with like my Twitter handle and whatever, right? Like the JF is like my initials. So I was just I was just doing the save kind of like username. So my full name is John Fitzgerald. Now you know a little fun fact about me for your next birthday pop quiz. So again, I also would have gone with Gerald much more. You know, that's what I go by on a daily basis, and people will probably search for that. But anyway, now I'm kind of like stuck with it because it's in all the URLs and all the things.
Well, I know when I went searching to tag you, I was like, oh yeah, it's JF.
There you go.
It's JF, and I was like, okay, that doesn't match your name, but okay.
Now you know. Now you know.
So John is away for a few weeks, so I am somewhat flying solo, but thanks for coming on today, Gerald. I wanted to show you because we do this thing where we have cool mugs, but it's usually me. I brought this one for you. I think that's
very cool. Yep.
You guys made that, right?
So there's a little bit of a fun story. I'm feeling terrible because I don't know the name of. Actually, speaking about the mugs, I've been watching a couple of your episodes. I think I need to pull out a hat because everyone's constantly wearing a hat. At least one. So I don't know. I feel
sports
like
hats
on this show. So there's someone in the community who kind of like came up with the design, as much as you want to call it the design, using Microsoft at Maui. I think even like Maui was announced, obviously, but not really a thing yet. And what I did was people kept asking me, like, because we put it on a shirt and people were like, oh, where did you get that shirt? Then you have like a website that is called Bonfire.
Yep.
And you can upload your design there and they print it kind of like, on demand. They have a way to kind of like do it in batches, so they don't do it like shirt for shirt, but like 10 at a time or something. So I uploaded the design there and everyone was just like, order it. Of course, it's related to my job and I just love the community. Right? I don't need to make any money of it. It was not my design. It was not my thing. I just wanted to facilitate this. So uploaded that. Then some people asked me for a mug, for a hat, for whatever. So made these things available through Bonfire. You can order it if that's what you want. And all the profit that does come from it goes directly to charity. That's also mentioned on the website right there. So that goes to right places, and it's only like a little bit, so it's kind of like at cost, right? So that's kind of like the story behind that whole thing. But Bonfire, it is a little bit pricey because it's maybe they have printing in Europe now too, but I think they print in the US primarily. So shipping that here is costly to begin with, shipping cost. Then it gets here. And then customs is like, hey, that's a nice shirt. We'd like to get our cut too. So then you have like $100 shirt. I don't know.
Well, now there's tariffs too, right? So it's
and tariffs and everything. Yeah.
So
the design, if you're interested, if you really want it, if you go to the .NET Foundation, they have a swag repository. So they have an account on GitHub and org. They have a swag repository with all kinds of logos and stuff. I think it's like CC0 or something. Like, you can do whatever with the designs that are on there. It's on there too. So just get it, go to your local print shop, get it printed, and you can have it on whatever you want.
And we'll put a link on here too, so people can find it. Yeah, grab it. It's for a good cause. It's a cool shirt. I have the mug. The mugs are a little small. They're the standard size, but everything in North America is size huge, right? So
Yeah.
when I press my coffee machine, it tends to fill this guy right to the top. So you got to be like, but that's all right. That's all right. Everybody's got to have one. If you're working with Maui, you got to have one of the shirts. And
One of the shirts, one of the mugs, one of the whatevers, right?
As I say that, I'm not wearing my shirt today, but
yeah, I should have worn mine. Yep,
it's all right. People don't really want to see us; they want to see the code, right? So
that's right. Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. So you've been around for a long time. I mean, I was around in Xamarin when it started. It came out of Simian and Novell,
Yes.
and what the heck was it before that with Miguel?
Wow.
Yeah, that's going back a long way. That's going back 2012, 2011.
Something
So
like that.
I've been working with it since.
Touch and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's there. See, it's age. It's more than 10 years now, and I forget. But I had started working with it with a POC, and I remember your name kept popping up way back when. I don't know if Xamarin Forums, because you've been around the community forever in one way or another.
Yeah. Actually, I do think I started around the time that it became like Xamarin and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I did look into it a little bit before then. I was pretty early in career. Like I turned 39 now in September. So I still like to think of myself as very young. I've been working as a professional now since like, I don't know, 20, 21, 22, I don't know, something like that. So a long time now. Did a little bit of Delphi in the beginning,
Oh,
but
wow.
focused on .NET. And I had my first iPhone. I loved it. Came around, at that time, and I was like, "Wow, I want to build apps with this." Right.
Yep.
Same time, we also had Windows Phone,
which was pretty cool.
Which was pretty cool. So I think it actually started with Windows Phone because they wanted to make that a thing. Unfortunately, we all know how that ended. But as a way to make that happen, what they did, at least here in Microsoft Netherlands, I don't know if it was a global thing, was you had to pitch kind of like 3 apps, one line, and then you would get a phone, a Nokia Lumia something, to test the app on, to build it on.
Yep.
And then whenever you get those 3 apps published, you could keep it. You could keep the
Oh,
phone.
nice.
And I was like, cool, that sounds like a nice challenge. So I knew .NET, so that was easy. C# phone, blah, 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 got it done. My mom used that phone for a long time. She was really happy with it. So that was that. And then I was like,
everybody that had a Windows phone in the time loved their Windows phone.
Loved it.
There's still people that rage on Twitter and stuff about it. Sorry, X.
Yeah.
They rage there. They're like, "Where's my Windows phone?"
Yep, it keeps coming up from time to time with like, "Oh, do you remember this thing? It was so amazing." I think there's a little bit of element there that people now kind of like romanticized how good it was, but oh well,
We have widgets and everything now. Like even iPhone has widgets, Android has widgets, so we have the equivalent.
Yeah.
I mean, it took an extra 10 years for them to come around, but we have the widgets.
That's fine. So. Exactly. So and then I was like, hey, like I mentioned, I was more of an iOS fan, like right from the beginning. But I had always been on Windows. Weird enough. So I was like, okay, now I want to get that experience for iOS too. So naively, I just bought a Mac. I was like, I'm gonna go all in. Started Xcode, and then I started panicking. We're like, what the heck is this? So
which I think is everybody's first reaction to Xcode.
Yes, yes, especially then. I think the windows were kind of like floating everywhere too. Like now it's like one window, but the Xcode back then like had all kinds of floating windows everywhere. I was like, what the heck's that? So anyway, and then of course Objective-C was it's nice, it's great, but it's also daunting. So I was like, I don't have time for this to look into all of this stuff. So I started looking for, hey, what else do we got, right? Like I want to leverage all the stuff that I know, C# and .NET, but then still build apps. And around that time, Xamarin Forms came up. So I started looking into that, and it was pretty new back then. So I started blogging mostly at that point in time with like, hey, I'm going to start learning this. Maybe that experience is helpful for other people. And from there, it kind of like snowballed into where I am today. So that went to a local user group had a paper magazine. So I was like, hey, that's cool. My blog post, but then printed. So I have something that I can hold. I think actually I have some copies still here. So this is like,
Oh, wow, look at that.
SDN magazine. I'm in. Oh, look. Oh, this is. Look. There, Windows phones, Microsoft
Oh my
bands,
goodness.
like all this stuff.
You got to admit they were pretty
Um,
screens though. Very interesting
yeah,
laid out. It was good. More information.
absolutely. Absolutely. So, I did that. And then this same user group also did like, I don't know, every 6 months, every quarter, in-person conferences. So it was pretty low key. And they were like, hey, do you want to do a session? I was like, I don't know. I didn't enjoy doing presentations in school, talking about my goldfish and whatnot. But, maybe if you're talking about something that you actually like, that you want to teach other people about, maybe then it's fun. So I did that. I think if you scroll back far enough on my YouTube channel, there is a recording of that.
And
But
the
yeah, I did
evolutions that
that.
have taken place over that time from then till now. Now
Yeah.
you've got all these, all these pop-up things. And John and I are often going, what the heck is Gerald using to do that?
Yeah.
So the whole
Well,
evolution of the presentation has definitely gotten there.
yeah, and yeah, so there's that, and yeah, I just stuck with it. Keep doing that. More presentations, more conferences. Became Microsoft MVP. If that means something to you, it's an award from Microsoft if you're doing great stuff in the community.
Yep.
So lots of visibility. Kind of like grew together, and then at some point I was like, hey, Xamarin Forms is great. It's open source. It at some point became open source. It wasn't when we started. It was acquired by Microsoft, and yeah,
And it exploded. Yeah.
and then it kind of like exploded. And I at some point thought like, hey, I'm going to contribute back, right? Like it's open source. We got all these cool things. There was a lot back then, a lot of these paper cut issues. You could argue they're still there in other forms. But I was like, hey, I can start fixing these, and it was of course. I think for a lot of people, if you've never done that, it can be a little bit of a daunting experience, right? Like big
Yeah.
open source from a big company, all these people that you look up to, and you're like, what am I going to bring to them, right? But back then there was a community initiative, and they were like, hey, we're going to do this together. So I had at least had some peers where I could like felt safe enough to ask the dumb questions instead of to the engineers at Microsoft. And I got my first PR in, and then I was like, that was easy. This is I can write C sharp, and the engineers there, like, don't get me wrong, they're super smart and they're good, but they're not much different from me. Like they're not the half gods that I thought they were. They're just writing code and doing things and figuring things the way that I figured
Don't
them.
let them know that.
Don't let them know that. They can smell
Don't
that.
let them
They can
know
smell your fear. So and then at some point there was an opening on the Xamarin Forms team, and I was like, nah. But I decided to apply anyway, and I won't
You don't
say
know until you
that it.
try,
You
right?
don't know until you try. And I think there was definitely a little bit of a luck factor in there. Not to diminish that, the fact that I do know a little bit of things, I guess. But I think there was a little bit of luck factor, at least with getting into Microsoft, right? Because this was a remote team to begin with at Xamarin, because typically the Microsoft teams working on their own products and on .NET are still in Redmond.
Yep.
And of course, like, again, it wasn't really like a plan that I had in mind when setting out. Um, but all the things leading kind of like up to this, focusing on Xamarin Forms, doing the presentations, becoming Microsoft MVP, interacting with the team, meeting a couple of the team in person because I went to the Microsoft campus with the FMP Summit. So they knew who I was at the time that I applied, and that probably helped with like, hey, we know that guy. At least we want to interview him, right? Like we don't know if we want
Yep.
to hire him, but at least get to the interview. And apparently, I got that right, and here we are.
And that's now what? How long it's been? But about
I
years or so.
joined. Sorry, how much?
But 10. No, I guess the acquisition was in 2016.
Yep,
Right.
yep, 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 yep.
So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
getting close to 10 years, but
yeah, but my hiring date is actually not that long ago.
Okay.
6.5 years. 6.5 years. June 2019. So.
And that time will go by faster. Once you hit 40, everything zooms. So you're almost
Yeah. Oh
officially old
gosh.
age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I'm over 40, so now it's everything is in high speed. I'm not in
Yeah.
high speed, but everything else is.
That's very true.
So you've worked with Xamarin, Maui, obviously for a long time, but you don't just do that because you're pretty much everywhere now. You're everywhere. You're out talking. You're out writing plugins. I know we use your audio plugin in
Oh, cool.
in one of the apps we wrote for the show. The Heads Up clone, we used it. I'm obviously using some of them in my apps, like the calendar integration. I think that's yours.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Yep.
Yeah, that one. So you're everywhere. How do you find the time to do all of it?
Well, so we were talking about it just before we started streaming here. With like, hey, this streaming, like, is this part of my job? Is it not? Like, this
Right.
is technically during work hours, right? For me. Oh, and you just woke up because you're in Canada. I'm in the Netherlands. So, and it all kind of like blurs together, right? Because that's the thing. I think it's probably a little bit clear from my origin story here that I just love what I do, right? So the plugins and stuff, is it technically part of my job description? No. Do I work on it outside of work hours only? Absolutely not. But do I take meetings at 10 p.m. To get the Aspire integration working? Also, yes, right? So it all balances out. And it's all based on kind of like what I see. So if you know a little bit about the history with the whole Xamarin thing and Xamarin Essentials, that was kind of like what James did back then too, James Montemagno.
I was
He had
very
a
much
bunch.
involved at that time.
Oh, that's
With
right.
all the
That's
things
right.
going on with that, yeah.
So there was a bunch of APIs, and he made all plugins for all these little things. And then at some point, people said, like, I don't want to install 25 plugins to make this thing useful, right? So please um, make this thing happen. Make it just one package that I can use and install. So that's what we did, and we named it Xamarin Essentials. But now, we're years further, and there's new APIs that suddenly came up with calendars, with audio plugins, and I
Yep.
think was proposed for Essentials at some point. But then we kind of like got into a weird place, I guess, where we had kind of like a cutoff point because we were working on Xamarin and Xamarin Forms, but .NET MAUI was there too. And we kind of like had to maintain both. So we were busy trying to port all the code from Xamarin Forms to .NET MAUI. And we had plans to still kind of like do Media Picker is a big example of that. Like that was still a separate plugin.
Yep.
The basics were transferred to Xamarin Forms or Xamarin Essentials, but not everything. So it was basically just you can open the camera, you can take a picture. That was about what you could do with it. While the plugin that we were taking the code from James, and not just taking the code, like this was obviously with consent and everything.
Yep.
What we didn't get is like the compression for images, like all the important stuff, resizing, like all the stuff, and most importantly, the orientation, right? Like you could take a picture with your device, like in landscape or whatever, and then you would want to picture rotate it.
Yep.
And also, we stripped off the EXIF information, so you were kind of like stuck. It's not rotating the right way, and you don't have the information to know what kind of like the right rotation is. So
I remember the debate then was, is it essential or is it add-on, right? Because a lot of that came up, like Bluetooth is obviously something I work with a lot, and they were, and I know John and James, they were like, yeah, that's not a small API, and there's a lot of
and that's the other thing too,
scope that comes with that.
But and that was kind of like the interesting situation we had back then. Like we found ourselves not being able to add that to Xamarin anymore because Xamarin was on its way out. Like it was still years at that time, but it was on its way out. .NET MAUI, we were busy kind of like making it on par with Xamarin. And then, some things kind of like lost focus. The media picker is one of them, unfortunately, where for a long time we kind of like had to ignore that simply because we were trying suddenly maintaining Xamarin and .NET MAUI, so that was a big effort. And then at some point Xamarin went away. Then we had a lot of stuff to fix, kind of like for .NET MAUI, and now we finally found a place with .NET 10 to kind of like implement new things again. So Media Picker is one of the things that I did for .NET 10 to get all the functionality in that people have been asking for years. How do I find all these things? That was kind of like your original question. Very long. Yeah, I don't know. I just do it. I love what I do. It takes a lot of time, absolutely. My family is not always happy, but they also know that I love, doing the conferences, going out there. So I just do it, and I don't know.
I mean, in terms of open source, if it's I mean, I look at it this way: it's a hobby. It's a hobby, right? And it's what
Yeah.
I do professionally.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
there's a lot of. I wouldn't say there's a blurred line. It's just I kind of work on professional code. Some of it I don't like. Some of it I do like. But then I've got my own projects that ultimately feed back the machine, anyways.
Yeah, and I
So
guess
it's
that's the thing, right? Like other people would invest a lot of time in building, collecting stamps. I don't know what are hobbies people do.
collect hats. Collect hats.
Yeah,
Yeah.
collect hats. So then it would be not be as clear, I guess, because you divide your time between these two things. And for me, it's just like, hey, I'm still coding, but now it's the hobby thing, right? Or
Yep.
I'm doing this thing, I'm writing this blog, or I'm doing this talk, and now it's suddenly hobby, or now it's work. But it's all still the same thing, and that's kind of like, I guess, where this breaks down, and people are like, how do you do all these things? Just because I invest all of my times that other people, normal people, would invest in another topic, in another hobby. But for me, it's all just the same thing, right?
Yeah, I
So I
definitely
guess
get it.
that's
I love to ask the question because you never know. Some people are like, it just, I don't know. And when you stop and you think about it, you're like, I guess I do a lot of this stuff. And
absolutely.
and it just, if you enjoy it, if you love what you do, it's easy to do it. It's just
Yep.
not a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's all the time in the world if it's something you want to do, something you're passionate about. All right. So obviously you've been working with did you start with obviously with Maui when you guys started the conversion, you were part of the team, right? So when you were going from Xamarin Forms to Maui, so .NET 6 era, were you?
Fun fact, I was not part of the team at that point.
Oh, you were not. My
I made a
apologies.
little detour. No, no, that's fine. I made a little detour. It's not a well-known fact. I made a little detour through GitHub Codespaces at that time.
Okay.
Uh, because right around the time when we were doing the transition from Xamarin Forms to .NET MAUI. And that's also why there was some delay there, because I think originally the plan was to make it even part of .NET 5, right? So that already became .NET 6, and then it even became kind of like out of band halfway .NET 6.
It was a very,
Because COVID,
very weird time for
yeah,
everybody, even
yeah,
for customers. It was a weird time.
yep. So COVID hit, and a big company, Microsoft, priorities change. I don't know, who can say whatever goes on in the minds of senior leadership at sometimes. So they were like, hey, reorg, Gerald, nice guy. Now you're working on GitHub Codespaces. So,
Oh,
I at that
that was
time, everyone was very uncertain, right? And I was just happy to still have a job, to still be at Microsoft. But I was suddenly doing something still very interesting and with cool new people, but something that I didn't, excuse me, didn't really sign up for. So I was like in a little bit of a shock with like, okay, what's happening? I never really thought that this was even an option. Because I was finally happy that I got the job working. I was building apps with Xamarin at the time, and now I was like, wow, this is the best job ever. I get paid to work on this framework. This is amazing. And then suddenly it was like, no, you're going to work on something else now, which was a lot of fun. Again, learned a lot. That was cool technology too. Um, but that was like, I left when it was Xamarin Forms, and then I think like I think I was on GitHub Codespaces for like 18 months or something, and then I came back, and then suddenly it was like, now it's all .NET MAUI. um, and in that time I stayed in touch with the team, because this was still my kind of like passion, my thing. So at that time I was also kind of like starting the Xamarin Community Toolkit, the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. I was involved with that. So at least through that I was kind of like staying involved and in touch. And then they had the opportunity to bring someone back on the team for .NET MAUI, and they were like, hey, Gerald, we know you still obviously love us. Are you so interested? Do you want to come back? So then I found my way back, and now I've been
and now,
here since,
now you're a
that time.
permanent fixture. They can't
Uh,
get rid of you now.
they can't get rid of me. No,
Yeah,
no.
you're one of the voices of the team.
Uh,
It's I mean, it's a fact, right?
I don't know. I mean, I'm very bad at selling myself, but I guess there's some truth to that for sure. But it's funny how that works in the minds of people, because I also see, which is totally fine, but I also see James being tagged a lot with, like, he's not been involved with Xamarin or Maui for a long, long time, but he's still kind of like the go-to name, which is sometimes funny to see.
I don't know. I'm very much integrated in the ecosystem. I think, like, I tend to pay attention to what's going on, because obviously it's my job too. I tend to deal with a lot of the fun customers you guys get. They usually trickle through to me. So you guys get them first, and then they come to me, and it becomes sometimes fun, sometimes not. And so I'd say I still think right now you and David definitely are kind of the head figures of the community. People know you. If I say your name, they know you. So
right.
That's why you're
And it
permanent.
doesn't matter, right? Like to me, I never kind of like what I started this whole story with. Like, I never intended to kind of like come this far with, because I would have picked a cool stage name. It's all about the community and the product and the cool things, right? But
Right.
I'm happy to be out there and show all the cool stuff that we've been doing, and also the cool stuff that customers have been doing, right? So absolutely.
Well, I mean, if they don't know you from your videos, then they're probably, chances are, they're going to be using one of your open source. That's how I always got referrals too, right? Is you don't necessarily know me. You may have nagged at me at some point in the future, but that's you've probably used something. That user dialogues never seems to die. I haven't used it for like 5 years, and people are still asking about it. I'm like, why are you still using this thing? It's old and clunky. Let it die. Let it find a corner and die.
It was pretty good. I used that a lot.
Everybody did, and I was like, it's nothing special, guys. Just throw it out.
But that's the other thing, right? Like, I get. So here's the thing. I understand priorities, everything, but also sometimes the stuff that we're getting in a dangerous territory. So I want to pick my words carefully. No, but
you can't offend me. I've
no,
been through the fire.
No, not you. But there is definitely, and I guess that speaks to the strengths of .NET in general. I think there are a lot of developers that will be like, there's not a library for this, so I can do this. It's like, no.
Gerald went there.
At some point, there was a slide in one of my presentations with like a saying, um, a library or a plugin or whatever is work that you could have done yourself, right? Like, it's just someone doing your job, basically. It makes it easier for you, right? It's not magic. It's a library isn't suddenly able to do things that you are not. It's full of code that you can write yourself. So it's always kind of like funny to me when a plugin or something goes away, and that's also what you're seeing now a little bit with .NET MAUI. We're not in the Xamarin days anymore. We cannot, unfortunately, do all the things that we have been doing in the past with all the bindings for all the APIs, because, like, just in iOS, there's like tens of thousands of APIs that we're all binding right now, that we're making available to you in C# and .NET. In Android, it's the exact same. Well, not the exact same, but it's like
more of a mess.
APIs again, more of a mess. That's for sure. We can't do it all, right? And then there's we did it all back in the Xamarin days, because Xamarin was a separate company and they had everything to gain to cater to everyone. But now that we're at Microsoft, it's a little bit weird that we are providing the bindings for Firebase, which is a competitive service, right? But you've had the bindings before, so you're a little bit spoiled. You're taking stuff away from me. I get that, but we can't do it all, and you can do it yourself. It's not like we have some magic thing to make this all work. You can absolutely do that yourself, right? So that's always kind of like funny. And I understand it's frustrating whenever you had something and now we're not doing it anymore and we're making your life harder. But it's not like it's suddenly impossible and you can't do it anymore, right? So
there's a few things I like to usually tell customers is that if you go to any other ecosystem, you won't find an essentials that comes from the company, right? The other thing I like to say is if you are taking a dependency, you're doing it because you want to save time, right? So do your customers a favor and understand this dependency I'm bringing in. I understand it. It's not that I couldn't build it, and it's not that I don't understand it. It's just that I'm doing it to save time.
Yep.
And I think that's now I get a bad reputation in open source sometimes because I'm a little bit harsh because I've had a lot of people come at me. In the early days, I had a pretty good foothold on terms of plugins, right? It was I mean, James, and then I had a ton.
Yep.
And so people come at you going, why don't you support this? And I had people emailing me, swearing at me. It was terrible. And at some point you try and cater to all those people, and it's like, this doesn't work. I'm like, did you read the docs for how the thing works? Like you really, people really need to do their customers justice and understand I'm bringing in this dependency to save time, not because it's a crutch. And I think it's unfortunately a lot of the .NET mantra seems to take that. Like I see you guys get a lot of it too, right? Like, how can you not have Bluetooth? And it's like, it's a big binding.
Yeah.
Would you rather you guys are fixing the thing that you do, which is the UI, and letting everybody else do the stuff? Because that's the thing. Don't depend on it. Because if you go to like React, right? So not quite the same thing, but there's no UI control sets out of the box, right? You have to go and find like a ShadCN or I don't know, whatever the new invented UI framework is today in JavaScript world. You have to go and get it, right? So I don't think users really realize how spoiled they are out of the box for a lot of things that you guys are providing, and it just isn't there in the rest of the ecosystem. Sure, the control suites are, but not essentials.
And that's the other thing too, right? Like it's very easy. I take this stuff way too personal. That's always my thing too. Like whenever people are like, "Oh, you should have this thing," I feel like, yes, you're absolutely right. Like, but I feel bad. But the other thing is that what will come up is like, oh yes, but Flutter has this or React has this or whatever. Like, and then it's very easy to kind of like get into a mode where you feel like .NET MAUI or whatever other framework needs to be the prevailing framework, right? Like this needs to be the thing that all apps are built in. It's like that's not how the world works. There's enough cake to go around. Like, some people like C# and .NET, stay in .NET MAUI. If you like something else, like I would love for you to stay with .NET MAUI, but if you want to go elsewhere because there it's all so much better, please do.
Go for it. Right.
Yeah.
And at some point too, you realize you're like, you know what? It does what I need it to do. That's how I started approaching open source. Was I made this for me.
Yeah.
And if it's a benefit to you, fantastic. That's awesome. If there's something you think could improve it or you found an issue, I'm happy to help. Right. If it goes beyond that, like I said, you guys definitely get a lot of dirt too thrown at you, right? Those are kind of some of the things that suck about open source. But it doesn't. I think once you realize I'm doing this because it's fun, and you just roll with the punches or ignore it or ban the people that are just tearing you down, it becomes a much easier world to deal with. You're like, that's nice. Go. You go do it then. Go build better. That's fantastic.
I had a little incident on Twitter X, whatever, the other day, where it was like that, and I think I at some point where it's like I cannot deal with this, but I'm then bad at kind of like blocking or muting or whatever because I also do want to know what people are saying about me. But I don't know. You're right. I should just probably ignore that more and be like, if you don't like it, that's fine. Go talk
all
about
you
things
can
or
do.
things. I don't get. Yeah,
that's all you can do.
Yeah. So oh well.
So let's talk about more positive stuff. I love the open source talk. I mean, like I said, I've got a little bit of a rap there, but there's reasons. But
no, for sure.
What would you say? Let's go to what's your favorite kind of .NET 10 feature? It could be MAUI, it could be anything with the language. What do you think was your favorite? That's a loaded question, I realize.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So honestly, I must say that coming from the whole like Microsoft MVP stuff, but sure, I was focused on the one thing that I liked, right? But I do feel that I had a little bit more overview of all the things that were going on. And now I'm pretty much in kind of like my .NET MAUI bubble, and the stuff that we're working on. Of course, together with Aspire, because that's what I've been working on too. So my favorite new .NET thing all up, I don't know, like it's faster. Amazing. It always gets faster every year. I don't know how to do it. I met Stephen Tobe in person 1 or 2 weeks ago, so that was cool.
Stephen Tobe is the Mr. Performance of .NET.
Just Performance,
anybody who's not
who writes the blog post that makes your browser crash, right? That's kind of like a running gag. So it's hard to say, but for .NET MAUI, like I said, like if you've been with us for a little bit longer, then we had a little bit of a rocky start. You already mentioned like .NET 6, .NET 7 was like okay, we see some things, but we're still going to wait. And .NET 8 was kind of like the version where we heard people say like, hey, this is the version that I want to migrate my Xamarin apps to, and we see the future, right? So then, .NET 8, .NET 9, and all this time we have been hands down focused on like performance bugs that were kind of like, the outside APIs between Xamarin and .NET MAUI is the same for a
Mhm.
large portion. Now it kind of like diverged, but at that time it was the same so that the transitions would be easy. But under the hood, like a whole bunch changed, which we, of course, try to, make it behave the same, but there was definitely some breaking stuff, intended or not intended. Um, so we were hands down fixing that. And now with .NET 10, we finally, I think, for the first time in a long time, we were like, hey, we have some more room to actually do more improvements. So me personally, I guess like it feels a little bit bad to say like the
No.
favorite Maui stuff is my stuff, but I the way it works, like obviously we set priorities as a team, but the way it also kind of like works is that I say like, hey, I see from the sessions, from the online streams, from the videos and the comments, I see that this is important. I think this is something we should have. You take ownership and you fix it, right? So one of those things was the media picker that I already mentioned. I love that we could get that in. Shane on our team has been working on the save areas, which was kind of like something we needed to do. Because Android did some new API stuff for kind of like edge to edge is what they call it, I think.
Dealing with the notch is what I usually call it.
Yeah. So some APIs to we had that kind of like coming for a long time to kind of like make that better, but we finally got that. Still lots of performance stuff, but also kind of like measuring the performance coming out of .NET MAUI. So we kind of like added some open telemetry connection points or just telemetry. I don't know if it's even tied to open telemetry, but we're kind of like emitting metrics from the .NET MAUI SDK now directly, so you can very easily kind of like see like, hey, how long does this element take to do its drawing operation, right? So you can kind
Yep,
of see, maybe we're doing something stupid, right? That's can always
it
happen.
happens.
But also like if you're kind of like nesting 3 layouts deep, and you see like, hey, this thing is taking a long time to render, at least you will have something to kind of like look into. Of course,
Extension, the diagnostics was a big one. For I think
oh
it'll
yeah,
be a bigger one as like
yeah,
Sentry, because I've done a lot of work with Sentry in the past.
yep,
That'll be a big one to hook into
yep,
for seeing that stuff, and you'll see the
yep,
layers and the full rendering loop go. Hey,
yeah,
it started here, and it seemed to go a lot longer, and you can see the depths that it syncs to. I think that'll be. I think
yep,
that's what's going to turn a lot of people into seeing how their app is really flowing, and maybe
yeah.
don't do 3 or 4 stack layouts nested that deep.
Maybe that's not the best idea. So just getting those insights, because that's something that people are asking about and should ask about. Like, hey, how do I make my app more performant? Right? That's definitely something you should care about. So we're definitely looking into because there's almost only so much we can kind of like do, right?
Yep.
There's definitely stuff that we can do to optimize, but we cannot prevent that you are putting 3 stack layouts into each other, right? Like that's on you. So any insights we can kind of like provide there to at least make you spot and help you with like, hey, something's going wrong here, and then figuring out why that is. We're focused on that. And the other big thing, which I really love too, is the improvements for XAML. Right?
Okay.
Chances are you a XAML fan, Alan? I don't
I
actually
am.
know.
I do
Okay.
either or. I do like
Okay.
the SAML. I know source generator was a big one for you.
Exactly.
This release.
So we did 2 big things there. The source generation is kind of like ongoing, and we're thinking about making that the default in a service release, even. So that's how kind of like
Okay.
how convinced we are that this is a good thing, and also how solid it is. Because what that does is like read your XAML, and at compile time it will generate source for that, right? Because it's a
Yep.
And because before, if you know a little bit about how XAML works under the hood, kind of like the first version, the version that no one should want to use anymore, is that it's inflated at runtime, right? So you run your app, the XAML engine then reads through all your things and it tries to compose the UI based on that. But you will only find out that something is wrong whenever your app is already running. If you have good tests, you go through it and you find it, that's fine. If you did miss something, it will blow up in your customers and your users' face, right? So that's not something that you want to have. And also, it's very, very slow. So then at some point, we were like, hey, XAML C is what we do, XAML compilation.
Yep.
But that
build phase.
That compiles to intermediate language, which is already better, but still not perfect because that's unreadable. You cannot do all the cool stuff that we are doing, and it's definitely a little bit better in performance, but not where we want to kind of like go. The big thing that we were hitting at some point with all the optimization that's going on in .NET 10, into whatever, to make your apps smaller, faster, and whatever, is the AOT stuff, right? And the trimming and however you want to call it. Which basically means, very short, like, hey, we're optimizing your, I don't know what's going on with my nose. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. It's freezing here, so I got snow going on.
It's just above 0. So, and what will happen there is like, hey, we identify the path that your code has, and whatever is not used, libraries or your app or whatever, we take out that code. Right? We don't need that. That only adds stuff that you don't need. So we're taking that out. Very simply put. And with XAML, if you are using kind of like a value converter or whatever only in XAML, the compiler will not pick up on that. So it will take out that that converter, which is actually used in your app, but the compiler didn't pick up on it. So the converter is gone. The optimization just took it out. And now your app will crash at runtime. So there is a difference between your debug version and the release version. And people don't like that.
This is one of the things I try and explain to customers. I'm like, if you run it in debug, you hear it all the time, right? I run in debug, it runs fine. I run it in release and it crashes.
Yeah.
What happened? Yep. And it's always the same. It's 99.999% of the time that got trimmed out, right? Yep. With the source gen and AOT, it's there. The code's there. Yep. The compiler doesn't have to guess what it's trimming. It's there.
Exactly. The code is the exact same. It has all the references in code, so it will be the exact same version, and you will never kind of like hit this again. That's the big thing here. And you can debug it, right? You can put a breakpoint in the generated code. It's still very verbose C# code, right? It's not like the code that you write, hopefully, because we have to do all kinds of things to make sure to not run into name clashes and namespace and blah 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 blah. But it's still C# code. You can figure it out if you want. You can put a breakpoint. You can walk through it. It's amazing.
I've been doing a lot of source generating over the past 6 months. A lot with Copilot.
It's very cool fun
to write. But yeah, it's very verbose. You got to put the global in. You got to put the fully qualified names because those collisions happen more often than people realize. Yep. And then they swear at you going, "You broke my app." I'm like, sorry, I forgot a global. I forgot a namespace. It happens.
Yeah.
Don't kill me.
And then the other thing, we've been talking for way too long. We can go for hours. Let's just take the rest of the day. So and the other big thing for XAML is to make the XAML itself less verbose, right? So we kind of like have the implicit naming and whatever that we call it simplifications. So if you are working with XAML, you know that you have like a first page. If you have a little bit of XAML page, a first page with like in the root node saying like XMLNS, and then your little identifiers with all the namespaces in there. You can get rid of those, and then you can also kind of like get rid of the little prefixes inside of each kind of like tag in your XAML nodes as well. So you can get rid of all of that, and that makes your XAML much more compact and readable. And kind of like this is a first step to many other cool things that we are kind of like planning from here. So
okay,
yeah,
cool. And now you didn't bring up your favorite thing. Your favorite thing, which is, and obviously this is actually why Gerald's here today, because he's the
you wouldn't say we're 50 minutes in, but
50 minutes. Oh yeah, we are. Well, we are. Gerald is here to show off Maui with Aspire. Yes. Now, John's been talking to me about this forever because I've been with the community forever, so I have a lot of tools in my belt already. So, not to say that I need to be convinced, but John's like, he tries to get me. He's like, come on, just try it, drink the Kool-Aid. So he didn't. So Gerald's on to show us or at least talk about some of the wonderful stuff that you guys have been doing. And I think you were starting to say that this is your favorite feature. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I have Maddie in the chat here, and she's been waiting for this topic to come up. So I cannot say anything else right now. But yeah, um, Aspire, yeah, it's cool. Big. So a little bit of a story here too. Was it the beginning of this year, the end of last year? I don't know, somewhere around 2023, 24. I was with Jeff Fritz, who you probably also know if you've been looking into the .NET community, and he's Aspire fan as well. And he was going on and on. We were at Swedug, so a conference in Sweden, and I was there with him, Matt Torgerson, I think, and me. And we were doing the conference. We were talking to customers. We were doing some user group, and so I saw Jeff Fritz doing like the same presentation like 5 times about Aspire, and each time, increasingly, I was like, why don't we have this? Why is Maui not connected to this? Because this is amazing. And we had some experiments going on by a couple of different people. Like I already said, like, yes, we have priorities at Microsoft and we determine them as a team, but it also, you would be surprised how much comes to be because of people just, caring and being like, we need to have this. And then they start spiking on it and then it becomes a thing or not, right? And this was definitely one of those things that a couple of people already looked into. We had something going on here, we had something going on there, and I was like, I'm done with this. I just want this to work end to end. So I started looking into that, and we made it happen. So yeah, what do you already know about Aspire, Alan? What's your?
I do use Aspire for a lot of the APIs. We've actually used it. We demoed a GPS app that's using Aspire. So, because a lot of people are using it, I think mostly from a dev perspective, and it's awesome because if you've ever used Docker or Docker Compose, it's really easy to spin up your entire infrastructure, right? Spin up a database, spin up, if you've got microservices, hopefully they're not, tens of thousands of them, but it's very easy for Aspire to get all of that stuff going with nothing more than the F5. So the dev experience is magical.
Yep.
The service discovery, also very magical. The centralized logging, it's nice, but I mean, we've always had Visual Studio for that. But Visual Studio is not good at dealing with, hey, there's 5 apps here running. I'm not really sure what to show you. So you end up going through all these drop downs. So the Aspire dashboard obviously really consolidates that. So it's a beautiful experience. And then from the production experience now, it's becoming more and more magical. It's the best word I can choose, right? Because it's very easy. You used to have these pipelines that were like, several pages long. And now it's like you can configure it all in Aspire. You can get it to, an Azure container app, etc., with almost nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people don't fully realize yet. So that's I've been using it for months, but I'm usually an early adopter.
Yeah. That makes sense. Like, we tend to talk about these things as if they're like the
Christmas toys.
You should use it, right? You should use it. But especially going out to the conferences, like we show all these cool new things, and then the next day people go back to the office and work on their legacy VB6 app, right? So there's a little bit of a disconnect. We're probably a little bit ahead of the curve with these kinds of things. But yes, absolutely. Like, Aspire, and that's the interesting thing too. I gave a talk on this a couple of weeks ago, where in preparation, I did a social media post with like, what is Aspire to you? Because I feel at this point, it's like, it does so much. And you will get different answers from everyone. So it's a little bit hard to define, which I kind of thought of as like, but it brings different value to everyone, right? Because especially looking at it from the Maui side, there is no deployment story, right? Maybe there will. I cannot look into the future. Maybe there will be at some point, but I doubt it, right? Because you have to go through app stores and whatnot, and whole complicated process. So at least looking at it from the Maui perspective, it is a local dev experience improvement. Hopefully, that's what we're going for.
Which is the main magic out of the gate. Right?
Yeah.
Like service discovery is painful for a lot of people.
There you go. Yep.
How long have we been using the localhost hack? And if it's Android, it's localhost plus some weird port, if I remember correctly.
Well, right? I think it's 10. 0.0.22 or something. So
yes, that's right.
and that because this is exactly why I wanted to fix this. We have a full docs page, a very lengthy one, goes outside of the camera view,
Mm,
talking about all the ways that you have to connect to a web service. Because then, if you're on Windows and you connect to your remote Mac build host, you can spin up like your iOS remote simulator, so you can see the iOS simulator on your Windows machine. Where's your local host now? Is it your Windows machine? Is it the iOS simulator? Is it the Mac? Right? So it's like it gets very confusing. So we needed to only to just to get rid of that kind of like docs page, which is what we did with Aspire. But so coming back to kind of like the origins of Aspire, like a lot of people are still like, hey, this is a very web thing, right? Like microservices, you can spin all that thing up, you can deploy that to Azure or other clouds. So that's and that's maybe the main focus. I don't know.
The,
Again, I think it brings different value for everyone.
the dev experience is magical, and I think
Yeah,
that that's what people miss.
yeah.
So one of the things that I like to do, and the reason, so dev tunnels, I think they just pushed into,
Yep.
I think it's beta though, right? It's beta in.
Not sure if it's in preview, yes or no, but that was kind of like I'm not gonna say they did it just because I asked, but me asking for it was definitely a factor that they added it. Um, because again, like if you're going to work on emulators and simulators, your local host is not your local host. So
Yep.
what is kind of like the easiest way to connect to a local service is through a dev tunnel.
Yep.
So I did a little bit of a spike with like, hey, this is how we can make it work. And then Damian Edwards on the Aspire team um, made it an official integration, which was much broader than just Maui, right? You can hook it up to everything right now and it will work. But I definitely was like, we need if we want the Maui integration to be there and be good. This is something we need. I will build it inside of the Maui thing, but I think this is more useful for the broader Aspire product. So they took that, they made it a thing for all of Aspire, and now I'm happily using that for the Maui stuff as well.
So I've been using something called ngrok for several years, and ngrok is just another, it's a dev tunnel. It's a
Yeah.
non-Microsoft
Yep.
product, and
I
I've
think
been hard
that
coding
one.
in URLs,
I think
but
that one is in
yep,
the Aspire toolkit. I think
it
there's an
is.
for that.
I use
Oh,
it.
there
I
you go.
use it today. Um, the difference is that you still have to you still have to have a static URL, right? It
Gotcha.
wouldn't
Yep.
pass through to your Maui
Oh,
app.
okay.
So now with the Maui integration, you can fish that through. So I buy the static URL for many reasons, but
Hmm.
you still had to hard code that or configure it
Right.
somewhere in your Maui app, then
Yep.
call through it, and you get all the proxy experience. You can see the raw
Yep.
requests coming in and out, etc. But it
Yes.
wasn't automatic. So that's one of the good points, is that you can be like, here's, if you've got those 10 APIs,
Yeah.
don't do it. But if you do have 10 APIs, you can fish them all through to your Maui app pretty easily, and
Yeah.
and magically automatic.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one of the big experiences. The other one is that logging. Now I haven't played with this myself yet. I was kind of hoping that we'd show a demo or something of it at some point. Maybe in a future broadcast, that's something that we'll bring up, is we'll be like, here, look at, you could, we just talked about those virtual stack layouts. Let's see that come out in the structured logs,
Right.
and see it misbehaving.
Yeah.
And so the system can actually scold you for your misuse of technology.
Yeah.
So that was one of the other things. So the logging experience, what kind of stuff have you guys done there? Is it would you say it's on par with what you get out of like APIs yet, or is there still kind of a story to be developed there? I guess is somewhat of an open question
um.
again.
Yeah. So two things, because we're already there's no such thing with overtime with you, right? You're
No,
mentioning a demo. Do you want me to kind of like talk and at the same
go
time
for
pull
it.
up kind of like the generic demo?
Go for it.
All right,
We don't have hard rules here. We just
sure.
flow with it. I mean, half
Just
the
yeah,
time,
don't
John.
don't share my screen yet. I'll talk
Okay.
and do. I'll try to do two things at the same time.
Okay.
The one thing I'll start with is yes, it's released now in preview, right? We released it as part of Aspire 13, right? They went through the whole rebranding because Aspire is polyglot, right? Not just for .NET. It's based on .NET, obviously, but because it was called .NET Aspire first, people were like, "Oh, this must be only for .NET, right?" Because that's how people
Right.
like, "Okay, we see this thing; it must be only for that," which is not true. So to make that more clear for other people, we lost the .NET, and it's now just Aspire. And as part of that, to also kind of like break free, still no one knows why. Um, it's now Aspire 13, right? It started with 9, now it's 13. So there's that whole thing. And we managed to get the .NET MAUI integration as part of that. Like I said, like, I was like, I want to make this work end to end. So I started working on it, and kind of like a fun fact, I started working on it with like, hey, this is how I think it should work.
Well, hey, purpose drives innovation, right?
Yeah,
You're like,
actually,
this is
share my screen. I can maybe explain it a little bit
go for it.
better that way. So the kind of like initial API that I had.
You are not sharing your screen though yet,
I'm
though.
not sharing
Just
my
so you
screen. Okay, I thought I was. Entire screen. This one share. Oh, there you go. See, there's a little pop up.
All right, I'm gonna bring this guy up for you. There you go.
So, perfect. So this, let me. This is okay. This is kind of like your basic setup for an Aspire thing. And what I had first to start with was kind of like this. So I'm taking the
Oh, you don't have
hybrid
one
version
app. You have
one.
two
That's
apps.
fine.
You have several
Yeah,
apps
so
in there. Oh,
we'll,
okay.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. What's this? And then I would say like, hey, is it a little bit readable? If it's not, please let me know.
You're good.
I would say like, hey, with iOS, right? And then, oh man, I love iOS, but I hate the naming, like, because this will always mess everything up,
And
right? Like
it ticks off all the tooling. They're like,
I
warning,
yeah.
this isn't a properly named namespace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 exactly.
Mm.
And with Android and all that kind of stuff, right? So you could add those, then that would show up as separate targets, because obviously, at least like you don't have to, but one of the unique selling points of a Maui project is that it's single project, and then you can run all the different targets from that one project.
Yep.
So this would light up in your Aspire dashboard, like, hey, the iOS one, the Android one, the Windows one. So had it working with dev tunnels, everything fantastic. It was working functionally. Then I brought this to the Aspire team, and they were like, "Nope, this is not going to work." Thought it's a little bit nicer, but that's what I heard. And then I cried myself to sleep. No, that's not true. But and from their perspective, that totally makes sense, because again, from the Maui standpoint, this makes sense, right? You have this one Maui project, and I want to see my iOS, my Android, and things.
Yep.
But from their perspective, everything is a resource, right? So now, this assumes that you have a little bit of knowledge about Aspire. Yet, I will go into that a little bit in a little bit. But how am I going to provide an extra environment variable to my iOS app if I want to do that, right? Or my Android app? Or
Yep.
how do I spin up two iOS apps, one on an iPad and one on an iPhone, right? So how are you going to do these things? Which again, they were totally right. Those were just things I haven't really thought about. So I had to rework it and do it really quickly, because .NET 10 and the Aspire release were coming close. So I turned it all around, and we were able to at least add the support for all the platforms now.
Okay.
So you can add your Windows, your Android, your iOS, and your Mac Catalyst apps, but it's still in preview, right? So again, very long answer to kind of like your simple question, like, hey, the logging story. Honestly, I think there is stuff that will work that I'm not even aware of that works right now. But there will also definitely be stuff that you may expect to work that's not working right now. So all the out of the box logging, if you are using kind of like the best practice, whatever logging stuff that is in your app, so you just resolve iLogger, use all that kind of stuff,
Yep.
that will show up in your Aspire dashboard, right? That will just work. The one thing that we also did, because a Maui app takes a little bit longer to build and to deploy, depending on what platform you're running on. So we are kind of like not building and deploying that whenever you start your Aspire dashboard, your Aspire orchestration. Um, So we kind of like build it on and deploy it on demand. So that also kind of like means that whenever you start building it and running it, that output will also come in kind of like your Aspire dashboard terminal logging stuff, right? So that
Okay.
well, and then of course the tracing. Whenever you go through the service discovery and all that kind of stuff, that tracing shows up between all these things as well. So kind of like the basics that you would expect from an Aspire organization, that all works today with your Maui app.
Now, one of the things it does kind of solve, though, is that one of the big things that I feel like Visual Studio doesn't do this. Now, I'm a Rider fan. Sorry, I
Yeah,
use my Rider. I love it. Is multiple launching, right? So if I want to
right.
launch my iOS app and my Android app, you can't really do that from Visual Studio.
Yeah.
Obviously, the iOS app's got to go over to BuildHost and stuff. So I'm a Mac user as well. That's also why I use Rider. Not a VS Code person. I need a rich IDE, so it's my own.
Gotcha.
I need it.
Yep.
But it was one of those things I could launch multiple platforms.
Yep.
So if you're doing anything with like Hot Reload, it just kind of works, right? And you've got both SIMs, or you've got a device and a SIM, etc. It works.
Yeah.
But it kind of looks like I tried it. It kind of looks like that's working out of the box with the Aspire dashboard.
Yeah. Yep. So if we go back to the actual implementation that we landed on.
Now you have stopped sharing your screen, just so you know.
Oh, I've had this with my teams before. Okay. Did it switch back because I stopped sharing, which I didn't really intentionally do? Oh, okay.
That's fine. That's see, I told you this
Okay.
platform sometimes likes to give you
maybe it's me. I've had this with my teams before. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. So if we go back to this thing, this is the API that we actually like landed on. Let me see if I can blow it up a little bit more for people.
You're not bad. That's my old eyes can see it.
This is, starts building your distributed application, your Aspire orchestration. I'm looking here because my screen for this is over here. A web API, simple file new ASP.NET web API that's right there. A dev tunnel, to make it all work. Then I'm adding my Maui project. Right, so this is just my shared single project Maui project. And now what I can do is on that, I have a reference to it. Because again, like if you're new to Aspire, this is kind of like your whole application landscape. You can describe it in a CS file, right? In code.
Yep.
You can get references to things. You can say, wait for this service to start up before you do that thing. You can add databases. You can add proxies. You can add Python. You can add JavaScript. You can add all kinds of crazy things. So I built this thing at Maui project. If you want to get started with this in your app host, again, it assumes that you know a little bit about this yet. In your app host, add the Aspire hosting Maui, which is in preview currently, and you get these new APIs to add your Maui project. Now, a Maui project, little sidestep, is also a Blazor hybrid project. You can add that as well, or a hybrid WebView one, right? A little bit of work to make the service discovery and stuff work there, but it does work. So you're adding your Maui project, and now you have a reference to it, and then you can say, hey, I want to add a Windows device. And for Windows, we only have add Windows device because there's not really a Windows emulator or anything.
Yeah. It kind of just is there. You just run it, just like Mac Catalyst.
Yeah, exactly. And Mac Catalyst, same thing, right? Like we just have Mac Catalyst device. So it's kind of like weirdish naming maybe, but just to make it very clear that this is the thing. And where it becomes a little bit more clear why we do that is because you can also say add Android emulator or add Android, probably gets messed up because there's nothing here. Add Android device, right? And then it knows, hey, we need to run on a device. Under the hood, these APIs don't do a whole lot different, except for adding a little thing to, tell the Android tooling to run this on an actual device instead of an emulator, right? There's a little bit of difference in the tooling, mostly some command line argument that it needs to pass to make it go to a device instead of an emulator.
Yep.
So we got all these things, but what's the cool thing is that we just have this one reference to this project. So I can do this Maui app, add Windows device, but at the same time, I can add that multiple times. So I have it for a Mac Catalyst device right here, but I can also say Maui app dot add iOS. My IntelliSense is not really working. iOS simulator from the top of my head.
It's all right. The AI is trying to help you out.
it's trying to help me with this thing.
That
So we
lit
have
up.
this, and then here in the again, it's not really showing up for whatever reason. Here you can specify the iOS simulator. Right now it's a GUID, right? iOS has this weird thing with all kinds of GUIDs that you need to put in here to make it use the right one. So if you want to run it on 2 separate simulators, you can just copy this thing, and you will have the same app in your Aspire dashboard, but running on 2 separate things. Or you can run it on your iOS simulator and an iOS device. So you can mix and match all these things, but you will still have the reference to the same project. So yes, you can absolutely kind of like run the same MAUI app on different platforms, different emulators, different simulators, while still building from the same kind of code.
And debug them all at the same time too.
And debug them all at the same time. It's
there's a catch.
I stopped sharing again. I see.
Yes, you did.
There's a little bit of a catch, which we need to figure out. For Windows, yes, this works. For the rest, I kind of need to try it out. And I'm 90% sure that it won't work for any other platform than Windows.
All right.
Because if we dive deep, anything except Windows still uses the mono runtime.
Okay.
So it's not really aware of that. And we're going to try and figure out, because for Android, we're already making Android compatible with like core CLR, right? So that's what Windows and kind of like the rest of .NET uses.
Yep.
So we're kind of like trying to figure out like, hey, are we going to wait until the Android core CLR stuff is baked, and then probably like the breakpoints will work as well, or do we need to do some stuff to make it also work with the mono debugger and do a little bit of extra work there? So let me share my screen again.
I mean, it's definitely exciting to see the direction that it's going, and it's kind of just all the IDEs. So whether you use Rider or you use VS Code, I almost said Xcode, definitely not Xcode. Visual Studio, it's just kind of all going to work the same way, because you almost switch off. Well, you do switch off essentially to the Aspire dashboard. Now, occasionally you're still going to go into, God forbid you have to go into the iOS logs, or especially ADB. That's still going to be in your editor, I assume. I don't think you guys are going to want to try and route all that traffic through.
Maybe, who knows? So
okay,
the way this works obviously is based on your feedback, right? You, the watcher, not just Alan, but whoever's watching. So we definitely think this adds value, but we also kind of like, I have definitely some stuff that I want to improve here, but we did the basics. You can run this, you can make this work, but from here we also kind of like pause for a little bit, see how people are going to take this, if people are going to take this, and where they're going, right? And then be like, hey, but I also expect to see my ADB logs. And if we hear that often enough, then okay, we know that this is a pain point for people, and we either need to improve that in Visual Studio, or we now have this cool new way of doing that, maybe in the Aspire dashboard. Because I definitely think that we have value to add there too, because like you're saying, like, you have all these tooling, and that's kind of like unique about the MAUI tool set as well. We're trying to combine all these tools and all these loggings coming from these different things. So how cool. I think it's already very valuable that you have all of that in one place in the Aspire dashboard, instead of this output window there, and then that other thing is over there, and then I need to look at the console logs for the output for the other thing. That's all just in one place, and it's nice to look at as well, right? Like Visual Studio, sure, nice and refreshed, fluent UI in Visual Studio 2026, but the Aspire dashboard just looks nice and crisp and very modern and everything. It's
and you're
nice.
you're looking at your app, right? You're not looking at it's all there, right? Everything you need. Now, nobody willingly wants to go into ADB logs, thankfully.
No, exactly.
It's usually something stupid that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Or if you've got one of those weird startup crashes on iOS, then you got to go into their console logger, and it's like you did it again, man.
Yeah, it's very annoying. This is going to be very annoying. So let me see if I can, without showing it.
Maybe you got to move your mouse. It's like one of those old days.
Maybe
your
that's it.
Maybe I just
need to keep going. All right, let's see if this works, and then I'll keep moving my mouse. Let's try that. Yeah, it's a little bit. I've had this before. It's definitely something on my machine, and I don't know
I
why.
always blame Teams. Everybody blames Teams, right?
Yeah, but we're not using Teams, so that's kind of like where it breaks down here. So you have the app host project, and this is where you describe your whole application landscape. In this case, but I think it even adds value there in case of a Maui project. One web API, one Maui project, but this can have like a gazillion Azure functions, do all these things, and it will just work as well, right? And what you're going to do is kind of like start your app host project, and then you get this output right here with like, okay, it's doing it, and then it presents you with a little dashboard URL where you can go to, and then it all kind of like shows up. Now, you might have already noticed, I didn't really call it out before, is I did these kind of like if operating system is macOS, right? Because only then we're going to add these things. You can add them without this if statement right here. It will still show up, but it will give you a little unsupported because, we cannot run your macOS application on Windows. That's just not something that's going to happen anytime soon. So then maybe why not just add them at all, right? So just not
Yep.
up. If you do it, then it's going to show you a little unsupported thingy.
Well, at least you don't have to worry about the support calls coming in for that one.
There you go. There
Right.
you go. So I'm using DevTunnels. This is again the DevTunnels integration that's already built. So they have like you need to log in for that. I think it's a free service beyond that, but you need to log in for a little bit. So you can do that. It should pop up with my little token, and then you can already see it, right? Like this is the DevTunnels resource that's going on here. It's starting. It's waiting for kind of like my input right now, which I need to log in right here. So did that. And then you can see it's kind of like starting because now it got my token. It can actually log in. So it's going to progress and it's going to start these dev tunnels. So this is the one in my app host that I had right here that I specified manually right here. And
And
that's
just to point out, that's really the magic happening right there. Like
yeah,
all that stuff is just going to free flow. All you had to do, because you've
yep,
already logged in, click a button, because
yep,
the settings presentation in the Aspire dashboard now is also fantastic, right?
yep.
So you clicked on, I think you logged into your GitHub, it
Yeah,
bounced
it
out,
just gave me a
came
little
right
bar in
back.
the top with like, "Hey, I need input." I hit, log in with GitHub. You can do Microsoft account or GitHub. I did
Yep.
GitHub just for because chances are that you're already logged into your browser, right? So it's going to just, be like, "Okay, I got your token, thank you," and it's going to proceed, right? And I'm not doing anything here right now. It's just trying to figure out to start the dev tunnels, and it's all doing that automatically. And it's
And
going to come up
it's
with like
beautiful
this.
because it's already pushed it down. So
Yeah,
now we're doing the normal compiles and
yep.
everyone just got to chill out
And
and wait.
I can just go to this one. It will give me a little note, and it doesn't do anything. But if I go to weather forecast, I think
Is your API up yet?
there
Yeah,
you go.
there it is. Look at
It's
that.
my API right there. You in the chat, you can go right here. You can go to this URL, and you will hit my local API. That's how it works. Um, so you can do that. And then we have another one, which is not super obvious, which is tied to my Maui app. Because one of the things that we needed to solve here as well is we can get the endpoints, right, that you're trying to hit on your API with that DevTunnels API that I just showed. But there's also telemetry coming from your Maui app, right, that we got to capture. And by default, it's sending that to localhost, and that's not going to work. So especially whenever you're running on your Android emulator and your iOS simulator, that's a problem. So I made that a separate call with OTLP, so that's Open Telemetry Protocol, something like that.
Yeah, you got it.
You can hang that in there, and again, it will configure it for you. You don't have to do anything. It will show up as a separate thing here, and that will then be tied to your Maui app, and that's where the telemetry will be flowing through. Now, I already got a question from one person who was working at NATO or something sensitive like that, and they were like,
Okay.
"That's nice, but I cannot use this, right? Because now the data is flowing to the outside, back to the inside. We cannot go outside, right? So I need to figure out something to kind of like um, make this configurable so that you can also point it to a local endpoint that is not localhost.
Okay.
So something I still need to figure out. But for most people, this will be fine. If you don't hook this up, also fine. You just won't get the telemetry, right? If that's not something that interests you, don't do it. And then from here, you can see like, hey, it's blown up now a little bit, so that's why I have to go with these
Yep.
columns and then change it around. But you can see my web API, right? Like that's running, right? Like web APIs, those kind of projects, they typically start up like that, so that will just show up. it will start automatically. If you don't want that, Aspire has all the bits to not do that. I think you can then do here on the web API, you can do with like, hey, with implicit start. Again, my IntelliSense is not helping, but I think it's pretty sure that it's this, and then it won't start up automatically, and you really have to press that start button on the dashboard to kind of like start doing that. Oh, it hasn't.
There you go.
I think it's a time limit. It's just I need to stop talking. All right, sorry about this.
No worries.
So
this is how technology works. This is
and then you will have like that MAUI app and the Blazor app and the Hybrid Web View app. And that's where I add the Windows device. Well, I'm on Windows, yeah. So I'm on Windows, so I'm adding these things here. So oh my goodness. So that's
the problem. You're on Windows. That's what I usually say.
Well, I have a complicated setup because you're actually on my Mac, but this is a remote desktop to my Windows machine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're really complicating things for yourself. I have that. I don't know. I try and minimize it, especially when I'm on. I was saying to Gerald before the stream, because I've done, I don't know how many live. I think it's the first time I've actually ever done a live stream with you. I've been on the team.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
In all these years, geez. I have done several with David Ort now. And I call, he knows I've called it the curse. Every time I do a demo with him, something breaks. Every single time. I kid you not. He was on the live stream about a month ago, and sure enough, I mean, I had just built the app before the live stream, no problem. Just another day. He comes on, and the Ort now curse kicks in. Nothing works. Not my remote. I use the iPhone mirror. It's great for streaming, right? Because you can bring it up.
I wouldn't know. I'm in Europe. It doesn't work here. Yeah.
Oh, you don't get that. Look at that feature. Oh, that's a shame. But it's fantastic for streaming. Like you might, they've had software for years that you can do it, but now it's in the box, at least for me in North America.
Yeah.
And not even that worked. It was just a total. It's a thing. It's the Ort now curse.
It's a thing.
So maybe I'm jinxed here, but
no, yeah, but maybe it's you.
It's me. Maybe it's
There's
me.
one constant factor here. Yeah. So what I was talking about just before we got interrupted, and I'm sorry if it happens again, dear viewers, but you can see like kind of like, hey, these are the references. So you can see the Windows one and then the Android one, right? I left the Android one outside of the if because Android is basically the only
universal
one that runs on Mac OS and Windows. So we got that going on, and you can see what I mentioned, like, hey, we're not kind of like starting the MAUI app directly because while you were talking, I pressed kind of like the run button. So that's what you explicitly have to do. And it took a little while because I also, it needs to build, it needs to come up here. Also something that I want to improve because right now, whenever you press one, it will snap to running automatically or directly while it's first building. So I want to have the state reflected here a little bit better.
Okay.
But you can see kind of like if you go here, you can at least see kind of like, hey, what it's doing. And then at some point it will come up. So to make that a little bit more better, insightful. And the other thing, especially for like Android and iOS, but primarily for Android, is like if I press this right now to start running, it will not do it because that's a weird thing in the Android tooling. I blame it on that. Like no emulator will come up whenever you just say like, I want to run this app. For iOS, whenever you say that and you say like, I want to run this iOS app, it will just come up with a random iOS simulator, which is kind of what I expect. It might not be the one that you were looking for, but it will at least come up with something. And Android just says like, I don't know what you want to run this on, so I'm not going to do it anything. And one cool thing, just like the kind of like the bar with logging in for your dev tunnel, we have the option to do these interactive things now inside of Aspire. So one thing I want to do, and these are all kinds of things that need to come together. So this kind of like comes back to your question also with like, hey, where do we want to take this? Jonathan Peppers on our team is working on like making the .NET Run command better. So now I think, well, not just .NET Run, but just the .NET CLI. And I think with what he just merged, or he has a PR open on the .NET CLI tool to also be able to list the Android emulators through the .NET tool, right? So no extra tools necessary. The .NET tool, the .NET CLI tool will just be able to say like, hey, these are the simulators or the emulators that you've got. if I can get that list in here, then I can go through the ADB tooling, or maybe we will even expand the .NET tooling through from there to kind of like also spin up the emulator, and I can do all of that for you from right here within Aspire, right? So you don't have
Yep.
to worry about that anymore. But right now, like I said, preview version, first rough draft, you need to have the Android emulator open for this to work right now. So
Okay.
that kind of sucks, but it at least can work. But the Windows one, of course, works. And then the other kind of like challenge we had, which is interesting, a lot of the Aspire stuff and OpenTelemetry stuff works based on environment variables.
Yep.
So if we go into this Windows app right now, you can inspect all kinds of details. You can see the connections right here. We don't have health checks for this. And you can see the environment variables, right? So this is all the stuff, and you can see here the service discovery works through kind of like this stuff as well, right? They're not really sensitive, but here it is. So that all works because I'm running on Windows, and these environment variables run on my Windows machine, and my Windows application running on that Windows machine will automatically pick it up. So that's great. But now, again, if I start running this on my Android emulator, it's like environment variables? I don't know what you're talking about. So we had this fun little challenge of like, hey, how we get these environment variables to Android, and for iOS, the same thing too. So we had to implement a little, and luckily there was some tooling to kind of like overcome that already. So we had some MS build tasks on the iOS side and on the Android side where we can write a little targets file, and that will be picked up by the tooling as being environment variables, because especially on Android, environment variables aren't really a thing. Fun fact: environment variables on Android need to be uppercased, else you will not find them.
No.
That took me some time to figure out. Ask me how I know. So you will run into all these fun little platform specific things. But so that was a little fun challenge that we had to with like all the different platforms going on here. But this is in here right now, and yeah, if we can see.
Your sharing is broken again.
Yeah, I know. So I was just the last. This will be my last try, and just to show you kind of like end to end, and then I'll let the viewers play with it themselves. So this is my Windows app, and this goes through the service discovery, right? So if you look at kind of like the MAUI app right here, this is a hosted GitHub. It's on the MAUI samples that we have. It's on my personal repository, my personal GitHub account, so you can find it, or else
we'll put a link. We'll put a link in the episode too, down below.
So this is the sample MAUI app, and then you go to your MAUI program. So this all works based on the service defaults, right? That's a special little project that you need to have. You can add that with .NET new MAUI Aspire service default, something like that. That sets up like the defaults for all these services. Then you have to call kind of like builder.add service defaults, and it will set up your OpenTelemetry, all these kinds of things. And from there, you can say like, hey, I'm going to register these HTTP clients to make them work with like the service discovery, right? And you will see here like this points to that web API identifier that I then use here as an identifier as well. And now it automatically, doesn't matter which address it is, it will be able to find each other. So if I just click it here, it will just come up, talk to my web API, and come up with these things. And the really cool thing is that if you go to like console, we see all the things fly by from all the consoles from all the different projects, right? So that's cool. We get the structured logs, right? That was I was saying. So if you do log call from your application, that will show up here too. And you get the traces, right? So we actually see. Oh, this is okay. One
Look
thing.
at that. Beautiful.
So here you can see the tracing for your HTTP calls, right? So that's this. You can see the GET call coming from our MAUI app to the web API. You can see how long that took. You can go in there and inspect some more things. And then you can get the metrics from your application. So you can already see kind of like the .NET things here. So this is the layout. You can get your HTTP active requests, duration, all that kind of stuff. But what I also already enabled was the telemetry from the .NET MAUI SDK that I was mentioning. So you can see kind of like my measure grids and my measure arrange and my all these things and my labels and my buttons already showing up here as well. It is
That's
part
beautiful.
of the service defaults. Just a quick note. So it's part of the service defaults, but it's disabled by default. because it becomes very noisy, because it does this for every element, right? So
Yes.
if you're not looking for this, you'll be like, what the heck is going on? But there's like these two things, add meter and add source, for these two things for Microsoft Maui. It is in the template, but like this. But if you want to see it, just uncomment it, and it will show up like this. And you will see like, okay, my label took 0.01 millisecond to draw. So this is probably good, right? But whenever you start scrolling through here, and you are starting to see big numbers, or however we are going to service this, we might do it a little bit better. But you can start scrolling through this and be like, okay, this looks like it takes a long time, right? And maybe we need to look into that. So that's all stuff that you will kind of like get together with this right now as well.
With next to zero work. I think that's something to be said too, right? Is you spawn a new template, uncomment some of these things, press F5, and voila. Right?
Yeah, it's the service default. So this is the defaults that we are like, okay, this makes sense for us to kind of like enable to you. It will enable all these things by default, except kind of like your layouts and measurements and whatever. But if you're like, I don't use this thing or that thing, or I want to suit this thing or that thing, the template is added as code to your project. So you can change whatever you want in there, right? It's just a default set of settings of things that we think is like useful to you. If you're like, that's not useful, or I want to change things, absolutely go for it.
Now the tough question here is so I might not, now obviously for those that have worked with Maui, it's easy to get this stuff out, right? Because this is a dev time experience. What's kind of your suggestions, your personal suggestions, as I want to take my app from dev time to production, right? Obviously I want to get rid of the fat. So open telemetry, absolutely useless in production. It's beautiful here. It's, I mean, from the dev experience, it's fantastic. But now when I want to go from, you know, to good old Apple to, you know, sacrifice my pint of blood to get my app into the store. Now, what am I looking at here in terms of getting the dev stuff out, right? So obviously service defaults.
That's definitely one thing that I think we need to. I think it's pretty easy.
I mean, to me, it's easy. You put it in if debug.
Right. So that's kind of like the easiest thing, right? Like you want to do here if debug this thing, and that's kind of like it, right? Like end if that's. But then of course the interesting thing already starts here, right? So you still need to tweak this one and also get like if debug or something else to get the right URL in here, because this is not going to work in production, unfortunately. And if you're going to deploy it with like through Aspire, that works automatically, right? So that's super cool, but that doesn't work for your Maui application, right? So you're still gonna need to differentiate. I don't know if there is a path for us to make that easier, or if it's just gonna be still like, you know, if debug, it's going to be this thing.
I think you'd be surprised is that most users, I mean, I've dealt with it. I have some MS build things that I do, obviously for CI/CD that kind of passes this stuff through. Oh, please don't hard code that, Gerald. Oh, that hurts. I feel that in my soul.
Whatever. Yeah, sorry. Whatever. It stops sharing. That's maybe that, like I cannot show this to my viewers.
Yeah, I hexed you there because you hard coded the URL on the app, and I just about had a nervous panic attack.
So this is definitely something like our first focus was like, hey, local dev experience, how we're going to do this to indeed like production. This is actually a good note to put into the documentation to if debug your service defaults, just so that it gets filtered out whenever you're going to production and nothing wrong, nothing weird ends up in your production version. And then kind of like, you need to take into account that the service discovery is going to do a thing there, right?
Now, just for other users watching, one of the things I have seen come up is there's so Mauiverse, you're whoever's running it. You're the figurehead on it. So Mauiverse is a Discord channel. I'll also put that link down below. I've seen questions come in because I mean, I've been multi-targeting forever. Multi-targeting is just, you know, if it's this framework, do this. If it's that framework, do this. And I've seen that question start to come up for the service defaults, right? You don't want ASP.NET. That's a fat framework file. If you've ever looked at the size of that puppy coming in, it is monolithic. So I don't believe it. It definitely does not AOT compile.
No. In fact, it doesn't compile at all. So the service defaults that I just showed you is a separate one. It's a separate one for MAUI. So no ASP.NET references anywhere, because that's what I started out with hey, can I reuse this thing? I think if I really put an effort in it, I could make it the one project. I'm not sure if we should want to do that, because right now they're pretty identical. So the kind of like the default Aspire service defaults one, and the MAUI one, they're pretty similar apart from a couple of things, but I could see in the future where they diverge from each other a little bit. And the immediate thing that I ran into was multi-targeting. So I was like, hey, it has ASP.NET references, put that on your MAUI project, do .NET build, and it was like, nope, that doesn't work. So I was like, I'm going to make a separate service defaults project for .NET MAUI stuff. So there's no ASP.NET references in there at all to begin with. And I think I made a couple of little tweaks now to make it a little bit better for the MAUI story anyway.
So that might just be something for new users coming in. So because I tend to, like, I have Aspire solutions already for some of the apps that I write, right? So I'd have to spin up a separate service default for MAUI. I mean, there's nothing to say you have to have that library anyways, because all that's doing is all the same reusable junk that you were going to do. You can take that and you can copy and paste it into your app, and it's going to function the exact same way. The magic is how those variables carry over. That library is just kind of your middleman going, here's all the stuff you generally have to set up. We've just done it for you. So that's a work of the template, not necessarily a work of the magic that Aspire provides.
And one of the really cool other things, like this kind of like comes back to what I was saying earlier with like, I don't even know all the stuff that it might support right now, because David Ortnow, who we've mentioned a couple of times now, has this app. He has several apps, demo apps, and one of them is like using AI stuff in a couple of ways. And obviously, like, security is a big thing, so we want to not commit our secret open API keys or whatever API keys, Azure Foundry stuff, to our public repositories. And we want to kind of like, we still want to make it easier. So what he did in his samples was like provide text boxes to set these open API keys and whatever from the UI. And he was like, he sent me this project. He was like, okay, I need a demo for .NET Conf or whatever. How do I aspire to this thing so I can also talk about that? So I was like, okay, let me look at it. And I was like, this is actually perfect. Because what he was doing for his own local development, to not have to put in his open API key all the time, he set it as an environment variable. I was like, cool, that works with Aspire. So what you can do, I think, with Aspire, again, forgive me the exact syntax, but you can say like, hey, a parameter dot add secret or whatever, and you can say like, I need a value for this parameter. It will pop up in the dashboard and say like, I need values for this and this and that, else I cannot go any further. And it will figure that out, because you say like, I want to have a value for this variable. And then you say on your MAUI project, in this case, I am referencing that variable. So it knows that before you're going to start your MAUI app, it needs a value
for the
parameter that you set. You can say from the Aspire dashboard, I need an API key, press the button, put that in there. You can just, you can have multiple, just paste in all your things. So that's also a great scenario for kind of like, you're new to a company, you work freelance, Alan. So you get to a company and they say like, here is the repository. It is Aspire enabled. It is Aspire powered, whatever you want to call it. And they don't need to give you any secret keys or whatever. You can use your own, or you can generate your own. You can just do Aspire run, .NET run. It will bring up the dashboard. It will tell you like, I need these things from you before you can start running. You figure out how to get those, put those in, and you can run your application without, going through, oh, yes, that's that person that is now retired who knew that connection string, and it's written down somewhere here on a sticky note.
And you don't have to go and install SQL or a database. It's going to do it all for you.
It's going to do it all for you.
And you can run all of your, your database setup, get that connection string, pass it through, and don't pass a connection string to a mobile app, please. I've seen it. I also have to say, Gerald, just so people don't come swearing at me, don't pass open API. Don't put open API keys directly in your app. Please don't. Please don't.
No,
It's very easy
absolutely not.
to strip an app, take those keys.
Yeah.
So when we were doing our one of our apps here, we kept saying, I've got my keys in this app. You can steal them, but they'll be dead by the end of the episode. But don't do this anyways. Don't do this anyways, because it's very easy to get those keys, and you've just written a blank check for well, I guess your audience in this case.
Absolutely.
And AI is not cheap. AI is not cheap to run.
No.
If it's free,
No.
sure, but it's often not free for customers, and it can cost a fortune. So
Yep.
I had to prefix that. Not saying don't do it for
Yeah.
local dev, but just in production, don't.
No, absolutely. The one thing I was looking over the chat here, and it might be on. We're also streaming to my channel, so it might be on my channel. I
Oh,
think.
that's why I'm not seeing it. I'm like, what chat are you looking at?
And I saw at some point, it's a little while ago, someone asked like, "Hey, the OpenTelemetry stuff, is that also something that goes remotely?" Like, no, this is only local, right? Again, is something going to happen remotely? Maybe, I don't know, at some point. But it's not going to be your replacement for App Center or anything, right? This is just going to be your local helper tool to get all the telemetry out. If you need something remotely, you have a couple of things. Raygun is still a thing, I think.
Yep.
What I like to use, like I'm officially in function for another 20 minutes, then it's 5 p.m. So, we love all of our partners. I personally have been using Sentry for a personal application that I've been working with, which has been really, really amazing. They're full transparency. They're not sponsoring me in any way. They did give me like a paid plan to kind of like work with and discover with, but that's the only thing that I kind of like got. So
I worked for them for several months, so I still.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
And
They're the
what
best.
was really cool is that this was an app that's actually like a consumer app. So we just are past Halloween, which is not really a thing. It's becoming a thing here, but it's not said that every house is participating.
Okay.
So what has been happened over the last 3 years is that we're saying like, hey, we're going to do this. It's more targeted towards the kids too, right? Saying like, hey, you can sign up as an address that participates, so we know kind of like where to come and where to press the doorbell and not bother people that do not want to be bothered. And we did that on kind of like a shared Google Maps thing, which is not
okay,
because it's not meant for that. So everyone had this shared instance. If one not really tax heavy person said like clear all the pins, we could start over again, right? Like everyone had all the permissions, so that wasn't great. So me and a friend, Steven, who is also active in the Maui community, we're like, hey, we know Maui apps, we can fix this. So we build an app to do just that. So on the one side, you could add your address and say like, hey, I live here, and you could participate, or you could just walk, kind of like go through all these addresses. So you could add your own address and say like it's not available anymore. Do a couple of those things, and the other part of it is like you can see the map with all the pins and where to kind of like go to. So fun little app.
That's a pretty
Put it
cool
into
idea,
Sentry. But now, as it goes with these kinds of apps, it goes into the wild, and all these errors occur that you've never thought of and you haven't seen in your testing, but they happen.
It's wild Android phones, though. Let's be honest.
It's always Android. But yeah, so all this stuff comes in, which is one thing, which is already like super valuable. You can see all these kinds of information about these devices, which is super cool. So that gives you some hint. Stack trace, what kind of device is it? Is it plugged in? Yes or no? What resolution? What device is it? Still not personal information or whatever, unless you kind of like put it in there, which you shouldn't do. But not really something you can detect, but you get all this telemetry, which is great. So we can fix that, but it gets even better. It has this AI integration. Yes, I'm an AI fan. I'm sorry if you're, if you're skeptical.
I am not.
And what you could do, you could also connect that to your repository, to your code. You don't have to, but that will make it so much more effective. And you can then say, on the one hand, you have all this telemetry in Sentry. AI integrated into Sentry, Seer, I think is what they call it. So
Yep.
the Seer, the telepathic kind of like thing.
Yep.
Look at all the details from this error. Here's my code, and it will say like, okay, it probably comes from here and there. I see this and this happening. Do you want me to open a PR? I was like, yes, please. And I was like, okay, it opened a PR for my code from a crash report that didn't come from me, and it did all the okay, cool. So I
Did
was
you
really
take
impressed.
the PR blindly though?
Yes, vibe coding. Just no, no, no. I did absolutely not. I must say the PR was helpful, but it didn't really pick up like it duplicated code. So it got the right idea, but it was not implemented the right way. So I still implemented it myself, but it at least gave me some idea of like, hey, this is where it goes wrong.
Which
So
that's responsible AI usage anyways, right? Give me a good, yeah, you figured it out. It's not quite what I want. Go and adapt it. Just like
yep,
open source.
yep.
You know, it doesn't quite do what I want, so I'll change it ever so slightly.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's the wonder of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's pretty wild that you can do that and it goes through and it figures it out and you didn't have to do
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
right?
No, for sure, and that's how we do it on well, .NET and Microsoft in general, but especially I can only speak for the .NET MAUI team. Whenever I sometimes get an issue, again, open source people, your developers yourself, provide high quality issue reports. Um, Not just a one liner. It doesn't work, right? I can't work with.
I'm pretty sure Gerald almost cracked there and swore. Almost.
No, 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 no,
Um,
no, 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 no. And I love every
I
one
get
of
it though.
you, but help me to help you, kind of like that thing. Like I do not know your project. I do not know the issue. I do not know anything, right? Like help me understand your issue, and I will
You,
gladly help you.
you would say
But
you're not
just
a seer.
I'm not a seer, exactly.
There you go.
But whenever I have something like that, and I'm like, A, this is an issue that should be very simple to fix, that a junior developer could fix, or B, I'm not really sure what this is about. In either of those cases, I'll just go assign to Copilot and see what it comes up with.
Yep.
Sometimes it will come with a proper fix, and I'm like, yes, absolutely, we're just going to merge that as is. This is amazing. And the other thing, whenever I'm not sure what it's about, it will 9 out of 10 times give me some kind of indication of like, it's probably in this area. And I'm like, you know what? I didn't think of that, but that makes sense. So even just for that, it's just super helpful.
I think you just did a video this week about upgrading
That too. Yep.
to .NET 10.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the hardest part for everybody, and I know I'm getting this a lot right now, is the Android X libraries, right? Anybody who's got those dependencies.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
AI tends to not work well there.
Yeah.
So not to
Yeah.
kick Gerald's video, because
No.
it's very easy to upgrade to .NET 10
Yeah.
unless you got dependencies. So Shiny
Yeah.
obviously suffers from that because I tend to
Yeah.
pull in a lot of Android X.
Yeah.
It was a long week.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. I still have some libraries to update in that regard. Absolutely true, right? It can do anything, and there you also run into the problem, kind of like the what did you call it, time in a bottle or something problem, where the model is only trained to this period in time,
Yes.
and the amount of times where I will say to it naively with like, "Oh, this is a thing in iOS 26. Can you please have a look?" Blah blah blah. And it's like, I'm pretty sure you mean iOS 18 because 26 is not a thing. I'm like, yeah, 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 yeah. iOS 26 is a thing. Go out on the big bad internet, look it up, and it's like, oh, you're right. Right. So take into account that stuff as well. And I imagine that's the same thing with Android X and updates and things as well.
My
So,
wildest thing that I have to explain to AI, because I tend to do a lot of AI integrations for customers, is I have to tell it the date. I
oh,
kid
yeah,
you
yeah,
not.
yeah.
Super intelligent AI, it doesn't
Yeah.
know the date. It'll often think today's like October 4th, 2024. I'm like, the
Yeah.
hell it is, guys. What
Make it
you're
part of like the core instruction to go out to
right.
some NTP server to get the date and time of today. It's not that hard.
It's and the argument is always, well, it wasn't in my context. I was like, it's the date. It's
Yeah,
the date.
yeah. Yep.
Anyhow, Gerald, I want to thank you for your time today. It was awesome
No
having you
problem.
on.
No, yeah,
You are,
absolutely.
we got you got a whole bunch of chats going on. I have like 2 messages in mine.
Aw.
But that's all right. Most of our audience comes on after.
I was gonna say,
Um,
people on my channel definitely because we were streaming this on Gone.net. So I'll make sure to put that in my video description. But definitely go check those people out because they're doing amazing things with usually together, but you bring guests on, and you're like definitely Maui focused, but also .NET in general, AI, basically everything that comes up, right? So
we tried
um,
to expand. We expanded our market because we ran out of ideas to do with
there you go.
Maui. At least talk about, right? Talking about it is hard. So
Yeah.
we were like, we need to show code. That's what people want to see, right? They don't want to see us. They want to see the code.
That's good. I think we have an entirely different stream show that we were set out to do, but I hope it was still fun and useful. I had a lot of fun.
It was fantastic. It's fantastic having you on. All right. Thanks for your time. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll catch you next time on GoneDotNet.